Hello, the wedding. Please excuse my accent. I can't do an American Italian. However, it was an old-fashioned wedding. Young men in sharp suits paid court to girls in party frocks. Kids dressed in velvet waistcoats or lace petticoats, reminiscent of their grandfather's day, played hide and seek between their elders' legs. Waiters made the rounds with food and drink aplenty. The band played, and whilst two influential families mingled and made or remade alliances, two older men sat in the background behind the pillars, out of the way, and reminisced. The senior of the two was a grizzled veteran whose immaculate turnout barely disguised the animal force of the man wearing it. His friend of many years, whom he saw rarely, was visiting specially for the occasion. Both had eaten and drunk well, and been treated with the respect that they felt they deserved, right the way through the day's various ceremonies. Now it was the youngsters' turn, and they were happy with their own company. The older man was holding forth. Them Mariants, do you know how the family started? They didn't all come from over from the old country back in the 30s. That was only on the side of the old lady, Maria, the matriarch. Back in the day when she first arrived here, she was still married though. She met him in the old country, and he came over with her when her papa sent for her. It was her papa that was the real head of the family, a true Don, and he wasn't too taken with the husband at first. Mario started out as a foot soldier, but Maria had Papa twisted round her finger, and he was soon promoted. You know how it is. His friend nodded sagely, not interrupting the flow of the talk. He understood perfectly. He had his own princess. He worked hard, mind, and he had a good lieutenant, Eddie, who wasn't shy of making a hit when it was needed. Eddie's family was American, second generation, but there was less differentiation in those days, and he and Mario got on fine, best buddies. There was a pause while they hailed a passing waiter, replaced their empty glasses, and relit cigars. The trouble started because Mario was so proud of his wife. She had such a beautiful body. But of course they'd married back in the old country, so when she married she adopted the long black dress and shawl. Modesty befits a married woman, that old country attitude, none of these modern short dresses and tight jeans for decent Italian women back then. And she brought those values with her. That didn't suit Mario. He'd adopted the ways of the new country, silk suits, snap-brim, pearl-grey trilbies, called for another look on his arm. It was not that he didn't appreciate his wife. He was totally besotted. But he wanted to show off his good fortune, and he was always making references to it. Like when he and Eddie would be collecting the take from a strip joint, and he'd tell Eddie how drab the girls looked compared to what he had at home. That sort of thing. Could never resist it. Finally, he wound himself up over it so much that nothing would do but he must show Eddie the reality, in the flesh, so to speak. Of course, Maria was much too much of an old-fashioned girl to agree to anything like that, but he devised a plan. They had a beautiful villa, and Maria had furnished in the style she knew. Velvet cushions and drapes everywhere, that sort of thing. The description may have been vague, but it summoned a picture instantly for his companion. He'd grown up in just such a house. They all had. In their bedroom there was a curtained alcove beside the door. He'd hide Eddie there. When she came into the bedroom at night, Maria would undress at the foot of the bed and leave her clothes on the chair there. Then she would go to the head of the bed and leave her jewellery, earrings and such on the bedside table. While she was occupied with this, Eddie was to slip out the door, having seen her walk up beside the bed. Eddie was reluctant. He could see all sorts of things going wrong. And he knew Maria had the true Italian temperament. He didn't want to cross her or her papa. However, Mario was insistent and swore all angles were covered. And ultimately the boss was the boss. So he went along with it and everything appeared to go to plan. Except that on the bedside table, Maria kept a small travelling alarm clock. Not that she ever travelled or needed an alarm to wake her, but in her own way she liked the luxuries of the new country, and travelling alarms were quite a novelty in those days. The long and the short was that in the glass front of the clock she caught the reflection of Eddie leaving the room. She'd grown up in a family and knew a bit about self-control, even if she did have the temperament. She hid her feelings and carried on as though she hadn't suspected a thing. A couple of days later, Mario had to go to see her father, called in to discuss some business or other, and while he was away she asked Eddie to come over to the house. It was the boss's wife in the boss's house. There was nothing unusual, and out of respect Eddie naturally left his heat at the door before following Maria through to the kitchen. His leather soles clacked across her tiled floor, and she sat him down with coffee and cookies, like any good housewife would if she had a visitor. But when she sat down opposite and he looked up from his plate, he couldn't swallow the cookie in his mouth, and the cup froze in mid-air. He found himself looking down a chrome-plated muzzle. The mother-of-pearl butt was in Maria's fist. He saw the look on her face, and he shut up and listened, as instructed. Now it was getting interesting. His companion hunched a little closer over his drink. The music and the dancing in the background intruded a little less. Maria explained she'd seen him in the bedroom, and she wasn't going to stand for it in any way. No one but the man she was married to must see her that way. She realised that Mario had set it up, and he was going to pay. But Eddie had a choice. He could take a bullet right now and she'd deal with her husband when he returned. Or he could help her deal with him, marry her and take over the business. She'd spoken to Papa. He'd called Mario over so she could put her proposal to Eddie. Eddie remembered what he'd seen in the bedroom. He'd been remembering it ever since. Mario had been right in one thing. She was beautiful. And he could now see that she was also a determined and principled woman, the sort any man should treasure as a wife. He could take over as boss, or he could die right now. Really, it was a no-brainer. Mario took so much lead when he walked through the door. The rose bush they planted on top of him died of lead poisoning. Papa, of course, backed up his little princess and gave her the full dress wedding they'd been too poor for back in the old country. Fashions changed a little, but basically it was like this. Her son is giving his daughter today, and Maria became Mrs. Eddie Mariant. And that's how the Mariant family started. That's why we're here. Thank you. Do have a look back through the catalogue. I noticed there are some, what I think of as quite nice stories, which barely get listened to. I can't work out why. Maybe I'll get the titles wrong. All right, bye-bye.